She walked as if the world belonged to no one, and yet everything around her seemed to bend subtly toward her presence. In her silent detachment, he felt the weight of his own illusions collapsing, the boundaries he had constructed around desire and expectation dissolving in the quiet gravity of her being. Her presence, though absent in proximity, had left an indelible mark on the contours of his consciousness. Each recollection of her movements, the effortless grace of her gestures, the subtle energy she exuded, became a canvas for his reflection. He began to notice how much of his prior fascination had been with the reflection of his own need projected onto her. The elegance with which she navigated the world was no longer a source of longing alone, it was a mirror, showing him the spaces within himself that had been neglected, ignored, or suppressed. The first evening of awareness brought a subtle tremor. He recognized that desire, when unexamined, can distort perception and bind the psyche to projections rather than reality. He had assumed that her attention and presence were owed, that the connection was a matter of circumstance rather than mutual consciousness. In this recognition, he felt a pang, not of loss alone, but of the awakening that comes when illusion is stripped away. Jungian insight emerged in clarity. The feminine archetype she embodied, deliberate, autonomous, self-possessed, was not external, but intrinsic, mirrored in the anima that he had yet to integrate. He understood that attachment is a shadowed path if pursued unconsciously. Liberation, both hers and his, arises from acknowledgement and integration of the inner self. Her steps through the world were teaching without words. They invited reflection, demanded self-possession, and illuminated the spaces where he had hidden his own power. He wandered through familiar streets with a new lens, noting the small patterns of habit and desire that had guided his interactions with her. Every expectation, every silent demand, every anticipation of her reaction was now laid bare as a construction of his own psyche. The quiet liberation of her detachment forced him to confront these inner structures. He realized that what he had attributed to her actions was, in truth, the echo of his own unconscious projections. The first emotional turning point arrived in the silence of night. Alone, he traced the contours of memory, the gentle brush of her hand, the fleeting glance, the moments of shared laughter. Each became a dialogue with the self, revealing layers of dependency, fear, and unacknowledged longing. He began to understand that grief, longing, and desire are not punishments imposed by others, but catalysts for the confrontation with shadow and anima. Through stoic reflection, he observed the facts of reality without embellishment. She had chosen freedom, autonomy, and self-possession. Resistance would only deepen suffering. Acceptance did not mean passivity. It was an active engagement with the self, a deliberate witnessing of emotion, projection, and unconscious patterns. In the quiet, he began to practice the difficult art of detachment, observing without reacting, integrating without judgment. The second turning point emerged in a quiet morning. As sunlight spilled into the room he once shared with imagined presence, he noticed that desire could exist without control, that longing could coexist with awareness, and that absence could teach more than presence ever had. The shadow, long feared, was no longer a threat, but a guide. Each memory of her became a meditation, a reflection on the nature of projection, attachment, and self-worth. Her movement through the world embodied a principle both subtle and powerful. She required no validation, made no demands, yet in every action, she radiated clarity and presence. He realized that the qualities he had admired externally were qualities to cultivate internally: agency, grace, emotional clarity, and self-possession. In observing her, he glimpsed the blueprint for his own integration, the path toward individuation that Jung had long described. The third emotional turning point arrived as he reflected on his previous patterns of attachment. Desire had always been bound with expectation, longing always accompanied by anxiety. Now, observing his internal landscape, he noticed a softening of tension. The compulsions to chase, to control, to demand, all began to dissolve. Her absence illuminated the way toward inner freedom, revealing that emotional self-worth resides within, not in the reflection of another. Weeks passed, and subtle transformations became evident. The ache of longing was replaced by reflection. The compulsion to possess was replaced by awareness. Memory became a tool for insight, rather than a source of torment. Through this process, he began to internalize the qualities she had embodied.